We need to liberate Michigan from threats of violence.
No, Trump is not your friend, dude. And it amazes me that people actually, believe that when he's shown over and over and over again that he's a tyrant. Every single person that works for government is your enemy, dude.
Are going to keep robbing us and keep controlling us. That's where the problem in this country is at. It isn't with you and me. It's with these people, these politicians that keep robbing us and taking our money and putting you against me when we're facing the same problems in this life. When we're doing the exact same thing, working to support our families, but yet somebody's putting a bug in our ear for racism or they're just better than you. Nobody's better than one another. Everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time if you got two legs. Nobody's better than one another. Driving a car. It should be illegal for them to make a law to protect you for your own safety in your vehicle. You paid for that vehicle. Whose right is it to tell you to wear a seatbelt? I mean, seriously. Whose right is it to tell you to wear a seatbelt for your safety in your vehicle? What sense does it make to be told to be safe? To be forced to be safe? To be ticketed if you do not wear a seatbelt in your car that you paid for, that you paid the taxes on? You're being forced. See, that's what I'm talking about. The government is starting to overreach. It's time for people to start stepping up and stepping back against the system, against the people in government, not the people that are standing beside them on the streets. It's time to go after the government for its overreach. It's not their responsibility. What happened to the police departments to protect and serve? I watch too many cop cars fly by people that are broke down on the side of the road. That is not protecting and serving. It looks to me like the police departments have gone to harassing and collecting. Okay? I see live PD every day busting up people's Fourth Amendment rights and nobody's standing up for it, and when they do stand up for it, they get thrown in jail. So they're showing people that it's okay to violate your Fourth Amendment right.
I'll tell you what's like one of the hardest challenges in life that you'll probably never be able to get away with, and that's to not get robbed by the state. All right, y'all, here's a thought for today. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And indifference to this notion is the means by which the people can and will secure their own oppression. Wake the f*** up.
Online, the racist skinheads often code their messages to create an in-group of knowing people. RAHOA stands for Racial Holy War. 1-4 signifies the 14 words that stand for the racist skinhead main mission. To symbolize Heil Hitler, they use a numeric code based on the 8th letter of the alphabet. HH is coded as 88.
on 2 separate occasions after President Trump tweeted, "Liberate Michigan," to subvert stay-home orders to protect the public health of people in Michigan. Protesters swarmed the Michigan Capitol carrying guns, some with swastikas, Confederate flags, and one even with a dark-haired doll with a noose around its neck. These protesters called for the governor to be lynched, shot, and beheaded.
I remember this guy, Welchie, he got hit on the knee with a canister of tear gas, and he went down. He was down. My knee. It was the most beautiful thing. No, because after we take all that crap, for weeks and weeks, they would take this crap, and then you finally see men get up there and go right through. Wasn't it really a beautiful sight? It's called law and order.
When white men with swastikas storm a government building with guns, there is no need for the president to, quote, activate you because they're getting the president's personal agenda done. But when black people and people of color protest police brutality, systemic racism, and the president's very own lack of response to those critical issues, then you forcibly remove them with armed federal officers because they are considered terrorists by the president.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
But we're going to begin tonight with that alleged terror plot and the chilling plan. The FBI says it stopped before it could be carried out. A plan to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and then what they were planning to do to her. 13 suspects arrested, including 7 alleged members of a right-wing militia group. The FBI and state authorities conducting a series of raids in Michigan. Those 13 suspects taken into custody, 7 of them alleged members of that right-wing militia group. Governor Whitmer has been the target of protests since last spring over restrictions aimed to stop the spread of COVID amid one of the early outbreaks. Michigan, of course, a hot spot at the time. Today, Governor Whitmer thanking authorities for protecting her and her family, but went on to talk about white supremacists in this country. And the president, who she pointed out was asked to condemn white supremacists on that debate stage. You'll remember the president saying, "Stand back and stand by." Our Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas leading us off tonight.
The alleged plot nightmarish.
Earlier today, Attorney General Dana Nessel was joined by officials from the Department of Justice and the FBI to announce state and federal charges against 13 members of 2 militia groups who were preparing to kidnap and possibly kill me.
The FBI and state police seen here raiding a home and detaining an individual took action after the men met this week to exchange tactical gear and to pool their money to allegedly buy explosives. The mission? Attack the governor before Election Day. Authorities claim the planning was months in the making, with the men even going to the governor's vacation home twice to conduct surveillance. 2 of the suspects allegedly had a plan to create a diversion.
Discussed detonating explosive devices to divert police from the area of the home.
This was a highly dangerous group. They were well armed, they were training, they had a plan, and they were prepared to carry out their attack.
According to the FBI, the men were apparently angry because of Governor Whitmer's restrictions during the coronavirus pandemic, including those on gyms. Tensions have been high in Michigan for weeks, with militia members, some of them armed, at one point descending on the State House last spring, intimidating lawmakers. The FBI infiltrated and wiretapped one of the groups after getting a tip that the men were allegedly plotting against police and planning to attack the state capitol in an attempt to overthrow the government. With an informant listening in, they called Whitmer a tyrant. One of the suspects saying, "Snatch and grab the governor. Just grab the expletive." They allegedly wanted to take her to a secret location in Wisconsin for a trial. a trial that would end in execution.
All of us in Michigan can disagree about politics, but those disagreements should never, ever amount to violence.
An angry Governor Whitmer today calling out President Trump.
Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like these two Michigan militia groups.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared to
do that,
specifically
but
do it? Well,
I
go
would
ahead,
say,
sir. Citizen right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by.
At one point, the president tweeted there was a need to liberate Michigan.
So let's get with us to Pierre Thomas tonight in Washington. Pierre, where does this case stand tonight?
David, the investigation is ongoing and there could be more charges. It's not quite over.
Pierre, you just reported here weeks ago on this broadcast that the FBI Director Christopher Wray had warned of this very kind of threat.
Yeah, David, there are a variety of people and groups with grievances, some of them radicalizing online and some of them getting together to share their frustrations. They range from white supremacists to anti-government radicals from the left and the right, some of them even anarchists, kind of a witch's brew. The FBI has a difficult job of trying to figure out when they go from radical speech to something potentially violent. David?
Just an alarming story today unfolding, Pierre. Thank you.
Right off the top, I'd say that this is absolutely just horrendous that anyone would be conspiring to commit such a crime and to put another American, especially someone who's an elected official, in harm's way like this. I'm glad that we have such good law enforcement. We stand by our law enforcement, all of our investigators, to make sure that they're able to stop things like this. But I also have to say, Bill, these are some pretty shameful comments here from Governor Whitmer.
How come?
I mean, how you can go from a moment of unity to attacking President Trump.
I'll say this, and I'll take the hit on it. What we know is that the country has been playing politics for a long time on this hatred. We know this. He's a manifestation of the ugliness that's in us. Either we're going to change or we're going to do this again and again. This is us.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Very fine people on both sides.
There is racism coming out of the White House.
What the fuck are we doing?
What on earth is going on? The third deadly mass shooting in a week.
Once the country gets into a full-on whites against everyone race war, they're quite sure they'll win.
Our squad is big, and we won't get caught slipping.
You can knock us down, but you can never beat us.
And given the size of this squad and this great nation, we will not be silenced.
I don't know, like, members of the press, what the fuck? Connect the dots about what he's been doing in this country. You know the shit he's been saying. He's not tolerating racism. He's promoting racism. He's not tolerating violence. He's inciting racism and violence in this country.
I care about everybody. If you're a young African American, an immigrant, you can go anywhere in this state. You just need to be conservative.
Some of the 13 people arrested this week in Michigan, state and federal officials say were involved in 2 militia groups, part of a movement on the rise. Restrictions imposed in response to the pandemic and Black Lives Matter protests bringing people to the streets have energized militias that share a hatred of government and law enforcement.
The core organizing principle of a lot of the people who are joining this militia movement is that they want to overthrow the existing political order.
One of those charged in the kidnapping plot, Brandon Caserta, rebelled against the pandemic rules on social media.
Every single person that works for government is your enemy.
A friend of Adam Fox, another of those charged in the plot, says he recently became more radical.
He has changed in the last 8 months with COVID, wearing a mask. He believes his Constitution rights were taken away from him.
COVID restrictions imposed by a woman governor.
We see many of these folks being even more resentful that a woman tells them what to do.
Law enforcement officials tell NBC News some of the kidnap plotters were followers of an especially violent radical movement called Boogaloo. Investigators say another of its followers, an Air Force enlisted man, Stephen Carrillo, was arrested in June, charged with shooting a court security officer in Oakland, hoping to spark a race war.
I think there are still dangerous individuals that are out there. And it is a point of great concern. And that's why I think it's so important that our elected leaders tone down the rhetoric.
Experts who track militias say groups that once thrived in the shadows are now out in the open, with some believing only violence is the answer. Pete Williams, NBC News, Washington.
I spoke with Barry County Sheriff Dar Leaf, who does say he knows these guys. He, quote, has never had lunch with them or anything like that, but has ran into them at some of these rallies. He said they've always been nice and respectful to him, adding they deserve a fair trial.
Michael and William Null were among the first charged Thursday for their alleged roles in the plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The brothers from Plainwell and Shelbyville are now charged with providing support for terroristic acts, on top of weapons charges. Their West Michigan homes raided Wednesday night.
Was able to hear them say, FBI, have a warrant for your arrest. Come out with your hands up.
A neighbor of William Null spoke with Fox 17 under the condition of anonymity. They witnessed the raid and were shocked hearing what it was related to.
I had heard that there was a lot of militia people. Their right to do so, but to the extent that we just found out last night, totally surprised about that.
The Null brothers had ties to militia groups and were frequently seen at local demonstrations, including at this rally in protest of Governor Whitmer's stay-at-home order held last May in Grand Rapids. You can see William Null on stage alongside Barry County Sheriff Dar Leaf, a guest speaker at the event. We spoke with Sheriff Leaf Thursday night.
Well, I haven't read everything up on it. I've got other duties to do. It wasn't our investigation.
So I was shocked. I did not see this coming with those guys, but still, we can't convict them in the news media here. They do have a right to a fair trial.
Leaf says he doesn't know of Null's alleged involvement in the plot and doesn't have any regrets about sharing a stage with him.
Do you have any regrets from being on stage, sharing a stage with a guy who's now being charged in a plot to kidnap the governor?
Well, it's just a charge, and they say a plot to kidnap. And you got to remember that, are they trying to kidnap? Because a lot of people are angry with the governor, and they want her arrested. So are they trying to arrest, or was it a kidnap attempt? Because you can still, in Michigan, if it's a felony, you can make a felony arrest. And I think it's MCL 764.4 or something like that, 0.5, somewhere around there. And it doesn't say if you're an elected office that you're exempt from that arrest. So I have to look at it from that angle, and I'm hoping that's more what it is. In fact, these guys are innocent until proven guilty, so I'm not even sure if they had any part in it.
And Governor, as I understood your remarks just now, you said that President Trump is basically complicit in giving encouragement to groups such as this. Am I understanding you correctly?
I said that words matter, and anyone in a leadership position who is fraternizing or giving comfort to militia groups is complicit. I also quoted Ronald Reagan, who took it on, head on, and acknowledged that there is no place for violence and hate. Talking about white supremacy groups. And this is exactly what we're confronting right now. And when leaders, whether it is a local leader or it is the President of the United States, our words matter, and they either calm things down or they incite them. And every leader makes a choice about the words that they use, and they have ramifications. And this has been, I think, not something that it's jarring, it's serious, but it also is an extension of what we have been seeing happening more frequently in our society.
Amy Cooter got her PhD from the University of Michigan, and as part of her field research, she interviewed members of militia groups in person. Now, she says the Wolverine Watchmen are a relatively new group, but groups like it have existed in Michigan for decades. Michigan's Attorney General is charging several members of the Wolverine Watchmen militia group as they plotted to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer and overthrow the government.
This is an outlier. The vast majority of militia groups are the law-abiding type. They really see themselves as working with the government, even though they're skeptical about the possibility of government overreach.
This sociology professor estimates only 10% of militias can get this extreme.
I think it is important to understand sometimes how groups like this might frame their action, so that we can get to the root of it and potentially understand other groups that might be at risk for similar plots.
At their core, she says militia groups believe they should protect their constitutional rights to the extreme. In Michigan, she says the culture of being outdoors and using guns, coupled with economic uncertainty from the fallout of the auto industry and the pandemic, can make it easy for people to see militia ideologies as not too far of a reach. The group connected with the plot to kidnap the governor is relatively new to her knowledge, and they don't have much of a public presence online.
It seems like they really popped up in response to the pandemic and to the state lockdowns specifically.
She says newer groups can be more volatile. Increased polarization and conspiracy theories on social media, she says, can make it even easier for members to get carried away. Some people on social media have criticized the decision to call the Wolverine Watchmen a militia group, instead arguing that they're domestic terrorists. Now, Cooter says the actions that they were planning are academically considered terrorism, but they also met all the criteria for being called a militia group, and she doesn't think that by calling them that, it would make the members feel any more empowered than they already are. I'm Selena Guevara for WSBT 22 News.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot. And within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. A short 24 hours later, I was feeling great. And that's what I want for everybody. If you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, Regeneron. We have hundreds of thousands of doses that are just about ready. You're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. Regeneron. Because I feel great. I feel like perfect. I want to get for you what I got. Regeneron. and you'll see some amazing things happen. You're going to get better fast, just like I did.
Good evening. More than a dozen suspected Michigan militia members are behind bars at this hour, accused by the FBI of plotting to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer. All of them are facing felony charges tonight, 6 of the 13 in federal court. Officials say the plot involved abducting the governor from her northern Michigan home and taking her to a remote location in Wisconsin to stand trial in their own idea of court for treason. We know the alleged ringleader of the plot to kidnap the governor had been living in West Michigan, dividing his time between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. The FBI says Adam Fox contacted a Michigan-based militia group to try and recruit people to help carry out his plan. He would eventually gather his new recruits in the basement of a Grand Rapids business using a trap door hidden under a rug for access. We wanted to find out just who this man is. Our Tavarius Haywood tracked down a former friend and co-worker of Adam Fox. He's joining us live outside the place where Fox worked for over a decade. Tavarius.
Andy, Brian Titus is one of the owners of the Vac Shack vacuums in Grand Rapids. He says that he's known Fox since he was a teenager. He says that innocent teen who wanted a job back in the day may not be so innocent right now.
I knew he was with the militia, but I didn't know that he was, this into it.
He's talking about Adam Fox. Brian Titus, the owner of Vac Shack Vacuums in Grand Rapids, says he hired Fox when he was just 17 years old because he was kicked out of his home. Titus hoped that was the start of a new beginning for Fox.
He was an employee of mine. I had no idea what was going on. He had some dark secrets. He was doing this after hours, so I had no idea.
According to Titus, Fox was kicked out of one militia and then started his own. Court documents say that he and several other people traveled out of town to recruit new members.
He was doing this in different states. He was doing it. I found out today he was planning on doing some in the store. Thank God it didn't happen.
He says during the last conversation he had with Fox, Fox told him he was going to the other side of the state to meet with friends. Titus says that worried him because he knew what Fox was a part of. He says he feels betrayed by Fox and that he deserves to be locked up.
It's not illegal to own weapons or ammo. It's when you cross that line like he did, he needs to be punished. Thorough law. His bondsman called here, wanted about botting him out, and I said, he can rot in prison.
5 Michigan men, including Fox, appeared in court today. They will appear next Tuesday in court for a preliminary hearing.
Earlier today, Attorney General Dana Nessel was joined by officials from the Department of Justice and the FBI to announce state and federal charges against 13 members of 2 militia groups who were preparing to kidnap and possibly kill me. When I put my hand on the Bible and took the oath of office 22 months ago, I knew this job would be hard. But I'll be honest, I never could have imagined anything like this. We are not one another's enemy. This virus is our enemy, and this enemy is relentless. It doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, young or old, rich or poor. It doesn't care if we're tired of it. It threatens us all. This should be a moment for national unity, where we all pull together as Americans to meet this challenge head on. Instead, our head of state has spent the past 7 months denying science, ignoring his own health experts, stoking distrust, fomenting anger, and giving comfort to those who spread fear and hatred and division. Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like these 2 Michigan militia groups. Stand back and stand by, he told them. Stand back and stand by. Hate groups heard the President's words not as a rebuke, but as a rallying cry, as a call to action. When our leaders speak, their words matter. They carry weight. When our leaders meet with, encourage, or fraternize with domestic terrorists, they legitimize their actions, and they are complicit. When they stoke and contribute to hate speech, they are complicit. So let me say this loud and clear. Hatred, bigotry, and violence have no place in the great state of Michigan. If you break the law or conspire to commit heinous acts of violence against anyone, we will find you, we will hold you accountable, and we will bring you to justice.
Mr. President, I'm scared and I'm mad, and I refuse to take it any longer. Colleagues, in June, when the world was shown the reality of our workplace in the Michigan Capitol, they were appalled. Men armed to the teeth stormed our chambers to intimidate us. And today, we found out that these threats were real. There was a plan in place to not only scare us, but to kidnap us and kill us. Mr. President, today the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, Dana Nessel, along with U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and the Michigan State Police, just announced a major law enforcement operation and criminal charges pertaining to half a dozen individuals, most from Michigan, in connection with verified alleged plots, according to an affidavit, to target and kill Michigan police officers, blow up police vehicles, gather hundreds of men to storm our Capitol building here in Lansing, counter our sergeants at arms, take hostages, kidnap politicians, bomb the governor's residence, and kidnap the governor, who they would try for treason ahead of the November election. These individuals, a couple of whom reportedly met at a Second Amendment rally here at the Capitol, held meetings, communicated via secret channels, engaged in firearm training and tactical drills, sought out the home addresses of members of law enforcement, and surveilled the governor's residences. It is interesting to me that one of the conspirators was quoted as saying of the governor, and I quote, and I'm not going to swear, so I will say, she effing GD well loves the power she has right now. She has no checks and balances at all. She has uncontrolled power right now. Colleagues, we should all be humbly thanking the Michigan State Police and the FBI and undercover agents and all the other law enforcement officers who thwarted these plots, because we literally dodged death this time. This time. But what about next time? Because there'll be a next time. And God forbid there are children in this building like there are today if they succeed. We need to liberate Michigan from threats of violence.